Hey everybody, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to Trendy Trading. Let's go ahead and get started with this week's broad market analysis. We'll be covering tonight futures from the 24th of April all the way until the 29th of April. As a reminder, I'm headed to a wedding on the 29th early in the morning, so most likely we will not have any sort of intro into the morning or anything like that. So just look at it as a Friday that I'm off. Matter of fact, I'm going to Beezy's wedding over in Jacksonville, and I'm very excited. So, will I trade on the road? It just kind of depends, if Ashley is driving. So, I will have my laptop with me and so forth. All right. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. So this week is pretty jam-packed with quite a bit of earnings. If you look here on your left-hand side, you guys can see that. Some of the big names coming in this week are going to be Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, PayPal, Google. I mean, the list just goes on and on. I really don't need to read all of these, but you can see I pulled this off of Twitter from Earning Whispers, and they are a great source for me to get that information to you. But always check with your broker if you are unsure of a date, and also be aware of these dates just in case you're in that position. All right, moving on down, you can see the market watch. These are the events or the econ news that are coming out this week. We have a jam-packed Friday, so maybe it's a good idea that I will be on the road on Friday, and we'll keep you up to date and coach you on all this stuff every morning, just to give you an idea of what might be out there. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So let's talk about the SPY. The view that you're looking at right now, folks, is going to be SPY here on the left hand side using TradingView. And on the right hand side, this is going to be Thinkorswim. I really don't need to do too much over here on the right hand side. I just want you to take note of the neutral strategy. If you have never traded the neutral strategy, please go to my YouTube page where I teach how to trade it there. You can see our targets to the upside and targets to the downside. Basically, targets to the downside are support, targets to the upside are resistance, and in the middle, you don't want to diddle, right? And that's considered the neutral. All right, so in there, it's a high probability that it's a mess. Okay, so we just don't want to trade in there most times. Okay, all right. So over here on the left hand side, we are looking at currently, this is a monthly, and I just want to show you guys this. I didn't put a whole lot of notes on here, but I did give you a couple key levels that I think are really important. So you have the 0.382 of the November 2020 rally. Basically, this is the bull zone, or the bull channel, I should say, and if price starts to break down below that, there's a high probability we could start moving down into the next pivot low at around 415, and below that would be the 2022 lows at 410 and some change, and you can see those two numbers here in orange. Notice that I made a note here that rounding bottom as long as a new 2022 low is not made. So again, this looks like a rounding bottom so far. It's not been easy. Notice that the last several months have had very big wicks to the downside, basically flushing out anyone that gets scared down into this zone. So I would definitely call this the fear zone. This is where we see a lot of people losing a lot of money. We see a lot of traders getting stopped out of trades just to watch price kind of pick up and go from there. So again, we're entering what I would consider a very fearful zone, if you will. All right. Now we ended Friday on what, 130, 140 points down in the ES futures, about $14, I think, $13. Let's see, $12 on SPY. So pretty ugly day, and that was coming off an ugly day, on Thursday as well. So not that great. My overall sentiment going into this week, I actually think we're coming down into or close to a little bit of support. This is going to kind of piggyback off of what I was saying last week, and that was we're going to be looking for a bottom or support and then looking to see if we can go from red to green. So basically the same idea as last week. Yeah, so let's just kind of go over that. I'll go into some smaller time frames as well. Okay, and let's go into a weekly. All right, so 3 weeks down, we're working on this bigger candle here. So again, I give you those levels. I'm not seeing much as far as technicals are concerned. We're underneath the cloud, and as long as we stay underneath the cloud, expect sideways to down. All right, let's go into the daily. All right, so this is the daily as well. We had 2 big days down, and if you look down and to the left, we should find support here, unless we open up and the futures, want to dump. But for right now, I would expect a little bit of support here. So maybe a little bit of red to green, just like last week. Again, I think all eyes will be on the 2022 lows. And if we take those out, we will be looking for a move down into 400 by 380. Okay. That is SPY. And then on the 4 hour, this is most likely what I'll be paying attention to. This is also over here on the right hand side. I'll be looking for support down here. And then my probability, or I should say my risk to reward here, would be the upper end of this cloud. You can also see we have inside and down formations. So we have built supply in this range, basically from 435.80 up into about 438, 439. Actually, let's just make that 439 up here towards this trendy mid edge. That's that purple dotted line there. And so this would be our reward to the upside if we indeed pull back and then find support and then have a couple days of rally in there. Again, notice here if we break down below the neutral, we would be coming into the yearly mid edge. We'll be coming into the monthly edge. So again, I like the area of 420, 422 being support. Let's just see how we open up tonight. And of course, if for some reason I'm completely off and just say that we just keep gapping down or some kind of capitulation happens, I'll obviously be there to coach that as well. All right. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the Qs. And again, I'm only this week covering SPY and QQQ as far as the 4 ETFs go that I typically cover. All right, and we'll go over those really quick. So again, on the monthly, on the Qs, this is what it looks like. Same thing. We had kind of like this double bottom look. We had the 2022 low. Are we coming back to triple test that once again, or do we break below? I think all eyes will be here. I do once again think we're kind of opening up into support. We got that nice pullback on Friday. And matter of fact, I almost thought I got exercised. I didn't realize that we had pushed down as far. If you guys remember, we are like, well, let's go ahead and shoot for 324. And matter of fact, they ended up closing down 324.22 by 324.25. So that was a big move. And during that whole entire time down, we were probably, I would say up towards this 332 level. We were pretty high up. And I remember looking down here thinking, we can hit this ME. And matter of fact, we got very, very close of hitting that. So that was an ugly Friday. But again, we close, as far as trendy methodology goes, we close very close to support. So there is an idea that, sure, we can gap down. But if we start to reclaim these levels, this might be a nice future trades over there on the NQ or NASDAQ futures. And of course, I'll be looking at my buy and sell signals there in your auto future alerts. All right. All right, let's go ahead and move on down again to the weekly. All right, so again, 3 weeks down, working on this chaotic candle here. That was a nice candle. Looking for some demand to come in. Same thing, looking for support somewhere in this region. If not, folks, you could see a move down towards 309 this week, even down to 297. And again, those big names over here that are reporting, they're going to make up a big portion of that, whether or not we can just kind of push up into resistance, or if we actually keep pulling into support and my lower targets here. All right, so that is your weekly. Let's go ahead and look at the daily. 3 days down, underneath the cloud, sideways to down until proven otherwise. However, coming very close to a little bit of support here. And if we go down into my preferred candle for this week, which is going to be the 4 hour, I'll be looking for support in these levels. And again, the cloud being resistance. Notice over here on the right hand side, once again, targets to the upside, targets to the downside. Don't do anything in the middle. However, okay, Disclaimer, because we're so close to the edges here, I can play off of this edge if for some reason, let's just say the open is pretty flat. We are a little red in the morning and say price gets down here towards the edge. If I start to get buy signals on my auto alerts, then I'll take the trade to the upside and I will use this as a stop under here about 323.50, and I'll look to be taking that trade at least up towards the 327 area, where I would be trimming and then trailing with stops and just kind of pull those up here. Okay. Once again, your risk to reward, if this were to work and we go red to green, then I'd be looking for a push up here towards this cloud around 330, 331. Okay. So that is, again, SPY in the Qs. Let's keep moving down here. All right. So DXY, or the dollar. Let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so there's your dollar, and on a higher time frame, I was taking a look here on the monthlies. This is really important. We are pushing into supply, but this is not the first time we've been here. 1, 2, 3. It looks like the fourth time we've tested this level. Typically, when we're trying to test levels from underneath, that is resistance, right? And the more we hit that level, the weaker it gets. So the key here is, are we making new pivot highs? And as of Friday on the dollar, we did. You could look at these wicks here. We got just over this wick, and what you want to be concentrating on is whether or not we are going to take out this wick. Okay, now what you could do is take a Fibonacci, start it from here, okay, and then bring it down to your pivot low here, measure, look for that 88.7. It's probably somewhere in there, and this is resistance until it's not. Regardless, guys, the dollar is really strong, and there is a possibility, as long as we're staying, see this bid stay above here, please be cautious, okay, just like last week. All right, next thing we're going to be looking at is the TNX, the 10-year treasury. Basically, what we want this thing to do is just slow down. All right, if this were a stock just like the dollar, right? Same thing with the dollar. We don't trade it, but if we were trading this, I would have to tell you that these things look extended. And at some point, I think they kind of come in and go sideways. With all the big names that are reporting this week, I feel like as if we just kind of slow motion it. So if we go to red, then we go green, it's not that it could be like this most powerful move green, but more or less we'll be waiting on so many of these names to report before we do any other damage, or maybe some sort of damage control, if you will. Okay, so we'll just kind of wait. We're waiting. It's a big week. Overall sentiment, we're underneath clouds. The dollar and the TNX look a little extended, as if the market could be coming into an area of support, and again, potential red to green. Notice I keep repeating myself. It's the same thing that we talked about last week. Remember, the cycles only last so many days. The up cycles during 2022 have been very limited. So again, I'm going to tell you, if we get an up cycle, be careful. Most of them are only lasting anywhere from 2 to 4 days, in some cases only 1 day. All right. All right, so the next thing we'll be looking at after TNX is going to be gold. So we had a member ask for this. I told them that I would put this in there. We used to track this quite a bit. On gold, you could see here that I am, I'm a little weary of the topping wicks, and although a lot of people want to run to gold for a safe haven when things are looking bad, I just don't think it's that easy to trade, and it hasn't been for quite some time. This was the easier breakout that came back in 2019, 2020. But all of this is a bunch of slop. We did get a nice push in February and in March. That was a great time to trade gold. But right now, again, the top and wicks are just kind of saying that the bears are in control above this level. So I have two different entries, if you will. I prefer the pullbacks versus the breakouts. So if we could pull back into these levels around 174, I'd be more interested in taking trades to the upside. Or if you like the breakout, I think that this level right here could be resistance around 183 and some change, 183.02. And you possibly could get a nice little push up here towards 189. Okay, so still good risk to reward if these levels hold. But again, I prefer the pullback. We'll see how we open up tonight in the gold futures. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the skew. All right, and we haven't put this chart over here, but I will as we're doing this. But notice we want to watch the skew on the weekly. Notice that we came down into this area of risk on. Now this is interesting, right? It this risk on area, we were not going long, right? So because of that, this is interesting. But if you will, the SPY in the background was pulling back, so you could see that the skew started to rise very quickly and ended at 136. So this area for me, folks, between the green and the red, this would be considered chop. All of the stuff in here. So again, choppy conditions, sideways and down until proven otherwise. Possible bounce into tomorrow's morning session. We'll see. Okay, possible. All right, so let's go ahead and take a snapshot of this really quick. And I'm going to put this down here. And let's just say skew. Overall, expect, not expectee, expect chop. All right. So even though I give you these overall sentiment, you guys know I'm going to coach you every morning in case there's like a dramatic change, and we have different plans. All right, so this is before the market opens on a Sunday, so things can dramatically change. All right, so that is the skew. Far as like risk, let's see, fear and greed. Let's go over here to Google, and I just simply go to Google and put in fear and greed. All right, and I love using this because I want to see where we are. And right now, uh, it's funny, it looks a little bit different than it used to. But this is where we are. We're sitting at 40, which is fear, and then we have extreme fear. We have greed, extreme greed. I personally, a lot of people think I don't know. I've never been called crazy or anything, but I prefer extreme greed. This is where I make the most money because I like buying support and demand. I like buying when others are fearful because I understand the level so well. All right. Now over here, if we start to go neutral, things get a little bit more difficult. As we get into greed, that's a little bit different. We stay in trades as long as the charts are telling us to do so. But right now, we're just sitting very close to neutral and fear. And to me, that makes sense going into earnings this week. So big earnings. So I think people are just kind of, hanging out, trying to figure out, do we go extreme fear? Do we go back to neutral? And this kind of makes sense to me. Let me show you something. I just thought about this. On most of the trades, we have a cloud that's right above us, right? If you will. And that's kind of like our rejection area. So this week, I think we stay between neutral and this area, or sorry. So let's turn that around. And this area here. I feel like this is where we are trading within this zone this week. Okay. And the reason why is because we're so close to those 2022 lows, but we got big names reporting. And even if they report well, will they get us over the clouds on the higher time frames? That's the question. So again, my overall, is neutral, possible pullback, red to green scenario like last week. And if that doesn't happen, that's okay too, because we're positioned for the way down. And we'll continue to coach. And I'll be there for you in the morning. So please, please, as I always say, please be there 30 minutes before the open so you can get my coaching because things could dramatically change. I can't wait to really have a great week with you again. Number one, let's stick to the rules that we put out there. I did very well last week sticking to those rules. Ended up being a good week. I didn't overtrade. Things worked out really well. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. You always know I'm here, and I can't wait to trade with you guys. Thank you so much.